Hello and welcome again to my NTND marriage. Today I wanted to talk about love languages. In between our first split and our second split, we'd gone to one of his work do's. And at first we all sat around this giant table eating, drinking and such. And then when the first meal or the second meal finished, people got up and mingled. And I took this time to just sit quietly by myself and relax and enjoy watching everybody, because I enjoy watching people. And while I was sitting there quietly, one of the other women came up to me and asked me, "What would it take to make you happy?" And as you can imagine, I was really thrown by this question. I'd always thought that I'd been maintaining my facade quite well. My public facade, my pretending to be smiley and happy and rainbows and sunshine, as you do. And here was this lady saying that, and I sort of realised that either she was very perceptive or I hadn't been hiding it well. And I think a little bit of both. This lady suggested that we get a book called The 5 Languages of Love. And so I did. I got the book and I read the book, and then I did the test at the back, and then I gave the book to hubby and he did the test at the back as well. The 5 languages of love are affirmations, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service. I already know within myself that affirmations is my number 1 language. I like to be told how a person feels about me as a form of affection. So compliments, acknowledgements, things like that, they make me feel better about myself. So obviously it was failing in my relationship because my husband was doing the opposite. He was using insults and critiquing and fault finding, which is the opposite of what I wanted to hear and what I needed to hear. Physical touch is also up there. I like to be flirted with and hugged and just things like that. His love language was acts of service. When he was reading the book, he was saying, "I love physical touch because I like sex." And the book said that if you like sex, then physical touch isn't your love language, because sex and physical touch are 2 different things. Physical touch is when you want to be hugged and you like hugging others and that kind of stuff. I mean, physical touch, relatively obvious. Generally, people will do to others their love language, which is definitely accurate in his and my case. I spent a lot of time complimenting him and acknowledging him for the things that he did and stuff like that, lots of verbal cues. And he did lots of tasks around the place. As I've mentioned before in videos, he does things like go up the street to get milk, does the grocery shopping if we run out of apples and food and such. So he's doing his acts of service as his love language, and I do words as my love language. The book also said that if you receive gifts and you begrudge them, then you're not into receiving gifts. So I've given hubby gifts, for example shirts, and he will ask to take them back because he doesn't like them. And he does that quite a bit with gifts I give him, which means that that isn't his love language either. What I did notice within our relationship was it didn't matter if I did his love language, which was acts of service, the thing he scored the highest in. He didn't seem to feel loved more or show love more or anything like that. There was very little change. If I vacuumed or did the dishes or did anything like that, he was still as relatively cold and distant as he always is. However, we do like to acknowledge the things that we've done. We like to give at least one compliment or acknowledgement a day, mostly acknowledgements. I would prefer compliments. I like to hear things like, I love your smile, you've got nice legs, your hair looks great today, and things like that. That is more appealing to me than thanks for mopping. But at the same time, I will acknowledge that the acknowledgements do help and they are working. Prior to this, we had a lot of issues with regards to the housework saga. And one of the ways we combated that was with the counsellors telling us that he needed to acknowledge the things that I've done and vice versa. And just to interject there, I did find out as well through the counsellors that one of the things that was bothering him was that he felt like he was doing it without getting acknowledged, and that was what was making him so angry. So we did find out that if I thanked him for doing the dishes or the washing and things like that, he did feel less resentment, which is a good thing. Helps with the relationship. Mark Hutton recently put a video out called a 7-day challenge where you have to acknowledge your partner once a day. And I can attest to that working. We've been doing that for a number of years now, and it definitely has made a difference. I don't necessarily like to be thanked for doing the mopping, but it's still nice to hear that you are being thanked for your contribution. And similarly, I give those acknowledgements, and I can see that it makes him feel appreciated. He's not necessarily more loving or caring or anything like that, but he feels appreciated. And that matters, especially when he is an acts of service man in general. I think most Aspies are. I think that is primarily, I don't know if it's their love language per se, but it's definitely the language they speak the most. The book did talk about love tanks, talking about love kind of like a petrol tank, I guess. And if you do a lot of mileage on that tank without putting any petrol in, it runs out and your car dies. And it's very similar to your heart. If somebody is constantly taking out of the tank by disregarding a request, insulting you, your tank eventually depletes. If they do that a lot, your tank depletes quicker. And each compliment or acknowledgement or whatever is your love language, maybe a gift, fills that tank up a little bit. So it did talk about the importance of a love tank and filling them up for each other. I have to admit I have been running on empty in my tank for a long time. But as I mentioned, since we've been appreciating each other more, it does help fill that tank a little bit. Not as much as I would like or that I need, but at the same time I really have learned to let whatever needs I have go, because realistically he's not going to meet them. Even if I said to him, I want to be complimented, he knows that, he hears it, but he will still forget, and I can't hold that against him. It's just who he is. So it's never going to be like full to the brim, bursting at the seams, but at the same time it's no longer as empty as it used to be. There were definitely some dark times there where not only was the tank empty, but I was chiseling through the bottom and digging my way to the other side of the world. So it was well and truly empty, whereas now it's starting to fill. So that's really, really nice. I would recommend giving the book a read. I think that it's really quite eye-opening. It also helps in other relationships as well, with your mother, your children, your friends, your dad, your siblings, cousins, whomever it is that you have relationships with. Each person has their own love language, and generally they're giving to you what their love language is. So it helps if you know what those love languages are. So even in my own case, for example, my children, knowing what their love languages are, I can then meet each one and fill their love tanks, per se. That being said, I've noticed even with my Aspie son, his love tank is much harder to fill. When we did the test for him for the 5 love languages, he didn't have a priority. Especially quality time was not one. Being touched, he's not a fan. Receiving gifts, he admitted he doesn't feel more loved or more special when he gets them. Compliments, it depends on the compliment. If I compliment his appearance, that's not an achievement in his eyes. You're either born good looking or you're not. Your appearance is, I mean, okay, yes, you can take care of yourself and say groom, you know, maybe have a shower and a shave and dress nicely and things like this. But that's not the appearance I'm talking about. Like I'll say to him, you're so handsome, and he's like, doesn't care. However, if I say to him, wow, that thing that you've just remembered then, that's really impressive. He beams. He loves that kind of thing. Or I say to him something about how stoic he is. He's loving that word. Since I've said that word to him, he thinks that's the most fantastic word in the world. He's really embraced his stoicism. So how you say it? Stoic. Anyway, he's loving it. So if I compliment him, it needs to be on an achievement, something he's good at, something that is unique to him, and not just a mainstream compliment that you could give anybody, like nice jacket, nice hair. So there's some things that I've noticed with him. As for my husband, I had been complimenting him right from the get-go, and I recently asked him, did it make you feel good? Did you care about those compliments? And he admitted, not really. He just kind of heard them and went, oh yeah, that's nice, and just got on with his day. So it might be a thing within Asperger's people that they do like to be complimented on, something that is specifically unique and individual to them, or at least fundamental as opposed to appearance. But your guy or girl may be different. So what I got from the book was acknowledgements matter, more positives, less negatives, filling the love tank, trying to learn their love languages, and appreciation. I think that's the biggest key for us, was the appreciation. Because as I said, it doesn't matter that I do deeds for my husband, which is his love language, acts of service. I can do numerous acts of service, and maybe he feels good within himself, but he doesn't necessarily express it in return. He's not, say, more complimenting to me or more affectionate or stuff like that because I have appreciated him. However, he's not as negative as he used to be now that I'm appreciating him. So please leave your thoughts below. Have you read the book? Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you tried to implement these things? Did you find out what your Asperger's partner's love language is? Feeling very tongue-twisted today. Leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you, and as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate it.